Holding a gimbal all day long gets tiring quickly, so you end up putting it down a lot. And your shots begin to suffer and get less stable because your arms are so tired. That's where the Thanos-SE from DF Digital Foto comes into play. Just throw your gimbal into the arm, adjust the tension, and you're ready to start filming with your gimbal all day long. The cool thing about the Thanos-SE is that it's very universal, so it'll work with just about any single-handed grip gimbal out there. And what I'm using today is the Crane 2S, but you can use this with other popular gimbals like the Ronin RS2, the Ronin S, the Crane 3 Lab, and many others. Luckily, in the box, they include a couple different adapters, so you should be able to get your gimbal to work with it. I'm gonna grab the vest right now and show you how to get this all set up. It comes with this nice carrying case. It's pretty simple, just a soft case that zips up, but it's really nice that they include it so you don't lose any of the parts. Putting on the vest could not be more simple, and it only takes one person to do. You just throw your head through the middle and one arm through another side. And then there's a buckle here in the center that you clip, and then one buckle in the back. And that's it. It's really, really easy to get on. Now, something I will note is that I'm definitely not a really big guy, but I'm not a really petite little guy. So for me, I have all the straps extended as big as they go, and it's definitely a snug fit. But that's probably a good thing because it means that a lot of the tension goes onto my hips and my back instead of it leaning off awkwardly and being too loose and too much slack. If you want to know what it's actually like to wear the vest, it's pretty comfortable. They've done a pretty good job building in a lot of padding. So actually in these shoulder pieces, there's some padding in here. Of course, you could always add more, but I definitely think it's comfortable enough for me. And then for the straps that go around your hips, there's also a lot more padding on these. And yeah, they just feel good on your hips. They don't dig in at all. Now, the next piece we need to actually get this all set up is of course the spring arm. And this was designed specifically for use with gimbals, which is really cool. So here's the little clamp piece that your gimbal actually slides into. And you can see that this tightens off and will clamp down around your gimbal. Now, if this space is too big for your gimbal, they've included a couple different adapters. So there's this little piece that will of course fit right inside here and fill that gap. So if you have a really skinny gimbal handle, this will help fill the gap. And then they've included one other little adapter that's kind of cool. It just has a 1/4-20 thread on it. So you can actually screw it right into the bottom of your gimbal and then place this inside of there. Mounting the arm on the vest could not be more simple. There's pretty much a sled here in the front that acts like a dovetail. So just make sure these knobs are pointing up and then you slide this right into place. And you kind of have to play with the rig and decide where you want your gimbal to lay in front of you. So just play with the height. You can of course go as high or as low as you want. I'm just gonna put mine kind of dead center in the middle for now. And then you just lock it off with this little lever. And that's it. It's on, it's mounted. It really is so simple to get this vest on. A lot of other vests I've used, like the Tilta Armor Man, takes at least 2 people to put together and get on. So it's very cumbersome. If you're a solo shooter like I am a lot of the time, it's nice to know that you can do this completely by yourself. Now I'm gonna grab the gimbal and I will show you how easy this is to get mounted. So just close the legs on it if you have the feet on it. So I'm just gonna slide it right in the top here. And I'm gonna kind of hold it where I want it to be and then tighten it off. Boom. Just like that, it's mounted. It only takes one little knob to be tightened. You don't have to do anything else. Now, the final main thing to do is to adjust the tension of the spring. So there's a spring here, and then there's these 2 knobs for adjusting the tension. It's extremely simple to do. It doesn't require any tools, Allen keys, anything like that. I love that it's toolless and it's just done with these knobs. So if you want to loosen it, you just lefty-loosey, and then the spring tension will start to drop. You'll see now it's going down this way. And the way that I like to do this is actually have the tension just enough so that it's not perfectly straight, but it's a tiny bit above that. That way it always holds up the weight, but it's not drooping at all and it's not way too far high inclined. So I think right about there is good. And then for this one, it might be a little bit too much tension. Look at that angle. I want to drop it down just a little bit so it's closer to being horizontal or basically parallel with the floor. That's too much. So I'm gonna tighten it back up. And there we go, it's just above being horizontal with the floor. That way you're getting a little bit of give both up and down. You're not all the way up or all the way down. It's just kind of hovering in that center zone. Now, a little bit of fun history about the Thanos-SE. A couple years ago, I used a spring arm vest that you typically use for a Steadicam, and I found a way to use some adapters and mount my gimbal on top of it. And DF Digital Foto actually reached out to me and asked a couple questions about how I did it, and if they made something specifically for this, if people would be interested in using it. And of course I said, yes, please make something like this. I know the filmmaking community would be interested in it. I think it could be a thing. So I'd like to think that I had just a little bit of impact on this thing coming to life. Now, as you can see, you can go completely hands-free with this. Of course, not for filming, but for when you just need to take a rest, or maybe you need to pull out your phone, check your messages or your notes, make a call, whatever it is. It's really nice to know that you can go hands-free, take a drink, something like that when you need to, and you don't have to worry about your gimbal. It's a really, really solid setup. It's not all gonna fall off and fall apart. So then when you're ready to film again, you just grab it, bring it back in, and you can start getting back to work filming again. You can orient this arm either to the right or to the left. It's just on a simple little hinge here. So however is most comfortable for you. I like to keep mine bent out towards the right so that I can have one hand up here on the controls and then another hand here down on the bottom, and the actual arm itself will stay out of my way when I'm filming. But if you prefer to have it on the left side, you can do that, but for me, my arm ends up bumping into it. You can also adjust the vertical angle of the gimbal. So if you don't want it straight up and down, there's actually a knob right here that you just loosen, and then you can angle the gimbal any which way that you want. I know a lot of guys like to have theirs angled out just a little bit more. That's the way they kind of hold it naturally. So you could angle it there, and then tighten it off, and it'll always be angled more forward like that. And if that's how you like to run, awesome. I don't even have to hold it. It's just nice and angled like that. And I'm telling you right now, there's pretty much no weight on my arms doing this. I just have to be able to control my joystick and the camera itself, but my arms really aren't holding any of that heavy gimbal weight. Now, when you're rocking a gimbal, it's a good idea to have an external monitor because you can't always tell if things are in focus and exposed properly from that back LCD. So I always mount mine onto the gimbal itself using one of these arms. This one is from SmallRig, but Polar Pro also makes one, and there's some other companies that do it as well. But I find that this works just so well because I can adjust the angle of the monitor so easily just by loosening this, and I can tilt it wherever I want. So if I'm kind of going into low mode or high mode, whatever it is, I can tilt this where I need it to be and then just lock it off, and it's always gonna stay there. So I can always see everything I'm doing really clearly right here on this monitor. I actually used this exact setup a few weeks ago to film a campus tour walkthrough all day long. And I can say at the end of the day, my arms weren't killing me. This thing actually works and can be used on paid shoots. It did a great job. The top payload that the vest and arm can support is anywhere from 4.5 pounds all the way up to 17.5 pounds. So you could put a really heavy camera and lens combo on here and you don't have to worry about maxing it out. I know a lot of you guys will be asking whether or not this arm gets rid of that up and down wobble motion. And let me just say, it kind of does, but then again, kind of not. So in reality, anytime you're using a gimbal, even with a support vest like this, you still really should do that ninja walk and try and be as absolutely stable as you can to keep the gimbal at the same height, because yes, this does help a little bit. Obviously it's spring loaded and it can kind of keep the gimbal in the same spot. But let's say you're walking along and you're not actually trying to be precise and keep the gimbal level. It's actually gonna bounce even more up and down just because of basic inertia, and those springs make it kind of bouncing up and down. So it could make it even worse. I still try to be as precise and steady as possible and keep the gimbal at the same height as much as I can to reduce that up and down motion. So in reality, with the arm, don't rely on it getting rid of all that up and down motion fully mechanically. It's really just meant to take the weight off of your arms, but you still have to have some skill and talent when working with the gimbal to keep it really, really smooth and nice and level. The arm and vest together weigh about 6 pounds. So honestly, it's pretty light and you don't feel a lot of the weight of it because so much of it is supported by your hips and your shoulders with this setup. So I'm not feeling really weighed down wearing this. And again, like I said, my arms just feel so much better. All of that weight is taken off of them, but I can still get beautiful, accurate shots. So you may be saying, all right, that's great and all for being able to film up at about eye height and through here, but what if I want to go into low mode? It's kind of awkward to kind of bend over like this and can't really get as low as you normally could if you just flip the gimbal around. Well, luckily it's extremely easy to get into low mode with this. There's actually another knob right here that you can just loosen, and then check this out, guys. The whole thing flips upside down. And now you're in low mode. Hands-free in low mode. It's beautiful. The only thing I need to do is adjust my monitor so I can see what I'm doing. So I'll just loosen this knob and tilt it back towards me. And then when you're done, again, loosen this knob, flip this thing around, and boom, you're back into upright position. Now let's talk about the cons of using the Thanos-SE. And the first one I've already kind of mentioned, and that's the actual straps on this. I wish that they were just a little bit longer and had some more adjustability for guys that are even bigger than me. Something else worth calling out is that when you're using a support arm like this, you're gonna be a little bit limited in your maneuverability. So let's say you wanna go from really, really low mode to very high. Well, I can't get any higher than this because that's as high as this arm goes. Or maybe I want to get the gimbal really close to my body. Well, that's as close as I can go because the arm just stops it there. So just know that when you're using something like this, you're not going to be able to place the gimbal exactly where you want to. You're limited to the range of the actual arm itself. Other than those few things, I'd have to say that the Thanos-SE is built really solidly out of that aluminum alloy, and it feels pretty high quality. There's not really anything else I would change. Maybe I would add a few 1/4-20 threads onto this, so if someone wants to mount something onto the arms or the chest plate, they could do that. At the time of filming, the Thanos-SE is $645 on Amazon, which in my opinion is actually a pretty good deal, especially when you compare it to some other gimbal support vests like the Easy Rig. Their most entry-level, cheapest one is about $1,300, so this is half the cost of something like that. So if you guys are interested in picking one of these up, definitely check out the link in the description below. And I want to say a special thanks to the guys over at DF Digital Foto for sending this out for review. They didn't pay me to say any of this or see this video before posting. If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe right now and I'll see you in the next video.